Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, and before him we heard from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, a long Russian military column appears to be heading from the west of the country towards eastern Ukraine. These satellite images were released by a US company. Moscow says it plans to take more territory with separatists that it backs in the Donbass region. Russian forces have repositioned away from the capital and surrounding towns and villages. It's thought a new offensive may target the country's rail network. Well, Arise correspondent Philip Crowther is in the western Ukraine city of Lviv, and he joins us live. Good to see you, Philip. So, conflicting reports from both sides about what's happening in Mariupol. How close to being prized away by Russia is that besieged port city?
Well, the only thing that we can be clear of right now is that it appears to be close to coming to the end of that battle for Mariupol. Who knows what will happen over the next few days, but all indications are, according to military experts, according to what we're hearing from both sides, from Russia but also from Ukraine, is that there is just a small pocket of Ukrainian soldiers still defending one part of Mariupol from the Russian armed forces and indeed the pro-Russian separatists, both of whom are believed to be trying to take over the whole of Mariupol right now. Now, there was an assessment from the Russian Defense Ministry earlier today that over 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers had surrendered in Mariupol. That is a claim that could not be independently verified, of course, but that also the Ukrainian government appears to be rejecting somewhat at this point. We don't have absolute clarity on this. The reason why is because there's no way of verifying this on the ground. Of course, Mariupol is too dangerous a place to be in right now for journalists, but also for any members of foreign governments who might want to make their very own assessments. That's simply not possible right now. We heard from the mayor of Mariupol earlier today, by the way. He says that 40% of the residential buildings are completely destroyed in that city, and that 90% of those are damaged. That city, you've seen the pictures from drone footage, looks entirely destroyed. It is a besieged city that has indeed been under siege since almost the very start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
So basically, the slow, agonizing strangulation of Mariupol, as you said, so many people killed, so much destruction there. I mean, it doesn't actually look like there'll be much left for the Russians to claim victory over.
No, and there have even been indications today that there might be plans afoot for a Russian parade inside Mariupol, which of course would not look entirely like a victory parade, would it? Now, the Russian plans, of course, for what they want to achieve in this war now with Ukraine have of course changed significantly during all of this time, from before the invasion to the time when Russia thought it was going to be able to take control of Kyiv and therefore the whole country within maybe just a few days, to then concentrating its forces in the east, which is what we're seeing right now, rather. Russia wanting to take control, it looks like, the entire region in the Donbass, meaning eastern Ukraine, essentially, and that's why we're seeing Russian troop movements. You mentioned the satellite imagery, for example. Those are troop movements, but also movement of heavy equipment from outside of Russia toward eastern Ukraine, but also from inside Ukraine already, where Russian forces are already occupying some territory, moving further toward the center of the Donbass area and those cities that Russia right now does not have under its control.
So as Mariupol falls to the Russians, Philip, I mean, with all the symbolism that comes with it, I mean, does this change the reality of the war on the ground?
Well, psychologically it obviously does, because it would be the first big city, in fact, to fall to the Russian military. That is quite significant. And when you look at the map of Ukraine, it's that small part of the southern Donbass region that is currently not controlled by Russian forces. The rest of that part, well, essentially there is a land bridge that the Russian armed forces wanted, that has essentially been established, with that only exception of the city of Mariupol, going from the southern Donbass region where Russian troops are present all the way to the Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed by Russia in the year 2014 already. But what we've seen again are the goals from the Russian government changing quite significantly. But Mariupol, if it is to fall in the coming days, it's going to hurt, of course, but also the Ukrainians see those who've defended that city as heroes right now.
And I know, Philip, that you touched on this briefly earlier, but I wonder if you might take us to the front line in that eastern Donbass region where Ukrainian troops are preparing for the next major battle of the war.
Yeah, it's worth taking into account that there's a very large number of Ukrainian troops already in that Donbass region. The reason, therefore, for that is that there has been a war, remember, between Russian-backed separatists and the Ukrainian army in that Donbass region since the year 2014. Since then, there has been a border, so to say, a line of contact, as it is officially called, between those Ukrainian troops and Russian-backed separatists. And that still essentially is holding, though the Russian-backed separatists are, of course, now giving their territory over to the Russian army. And that is a border, so to say, that Russian forces will want to move westwards as far as possible to be able to get a large part of that Donbass area under their control. Now, what we're seeing happening on the ground right now, according to what our reporters at the Associated Press are seeing right now, is that there are cities that are not right now under Russian control that are being attacked, according to the Ukrainian military as well, by missile strikes that are being bombed right now. These are cities that are not yet under Russian control, and that the Russian military, it would appear, would want to control as quickly as possible.
And Philip, on the diplomatic level, Ukraine, of course, demanding a lot of support from Germany, but initially refusing to see the country's president, who was supposed to accompany the presidents of Poland, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, all NATO countries. I mean, how diplomatically unclever does it make the Ukrainians look?
Well, look, instinctively you can absolutely understand this, and I think the Ukrainian people quite like the idea of Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, saying, "You're not welcome," right? Because the reason essentially is that Frank-Walter Steinmeier, the president of Germany, when he was the chief of staff to the former chancellor, when he was in a position of power, as he now is, established ties with Russia that were considered to be simply too close during that war between Ukraine and Russian-backed separatists over the last 8 years. Now, Steinmeier, speaking in Poland, from where he was expecting to travel to Kyiv, did say that the relations with Russia would not go back to where they were as long as Vladimir Putin is president. But this is diplomatically very complex for Ukraine and Germany. Both seem to be wanting to walk back a little bit that idea that Steinmeier was actually rejected by Zelensky, but I think it's pretty fair to say that that's exactly what happened. Now, what this means, though, for a diplomatic relationship between these two countries is another question altogether, because it is precisely Germany that Ukraine wants to see sign on to a full energy embargo, to a promise that it will no longer import oil and gas from Russia. That's something that Germany simply opposes. We've heard so again from German officials today, and they are standing in the way, along with other governments, it has to be said, from the whole of the European Union signing up to such a significant step. That's simply not coming, and Ukraine believes that that could be one of those crucial steps that would hurt the Russian economy significantly, and that would then also hurt the financing of the Russian armed forces.
Philip, always appreciate your reporting. Philip Crowther, Arise correspondent there, talking to me from the Ukrainian city of Lviv.